Welcome to Beyond the Review, customer conversations about digital transformation success, presented by Raven Intelligence. I'm your host and the founder and CEO of Raven Intel, Bonnie Tinder. Close to half of enterprise software implementations fail outright, or they fail to deliver the outcomes that were anticipated. Well, the reasons for these failed projects are many. A common trait is that a lack of proper planning and readiness from the outset, combined with unrealistic project timelines and other factors, is a huge culprit. The allure of rapid implementation or projects that are set to get a software customer live in weeks is real, but these implementations carry a much greater risk of failure than those done with a comprehensive and measured approach. Today, I am joined by Mike Maiorino, founder and CEO, and Ben Munoz, Chief Services Officer of HRMS Solutions, a consulting firm that works with HR software customers who aspire to transform their HR, payroll, and talent management functions using UKG. They were founded in 2003, and HRMS has enabled hundreds of mid-market companies throughout the United States and Canada to manage, empower, and optimize their workforce with leading HCM solutions, particularly UKG. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us
again.
So maybe we could start off. If you could both describe your role at HRMS and any background that you'd like to share relevant to this conversation.
Sure, I'll take the lead. So Mike Maiorino, I'm the CEO and founder of the company, started in 2003 in DC. Currently, the company's headquartered in Boulder. My background, I worked for a number of different software companies, including ADP, Kronos, and Sage. Today, I really run the leadership team and have some oversight on sales and marketing.
Amazing.
Excellent. Ben Munoz, Chief Services Officer. I'm responsible for all the service delivery from HRMS. Been in enterprise software for about 13 years, both on the vendor side as well as the partner services side. So really interested in delivering value to the whole ecosystem as a client goes through their transformation.
Awesome. So Mike, I'd love to start with you. It's said that projects can be either good, fast, or cheap, but you can only pick two of the three of these things. What I'm curious about is, in your opinion, is this really true? And could you elaborate a little bit on this as it relates to HCM implementations?
Absolutely. I think the common prospect today, motivated to look at moving off of their existing platform and onto another one, absolutely want those three components. They want high quality. They want it done fast because they're in pain. And they're typically motivated by a handful of reasons, and they want it inexpensive. And unfortunately, as they refer to it as the golden triangle here, you really can't get all three of those. The industry itself, and I'll delineate between mid-market and maybe enterprise, right? I think the larger the organization, I think it's more acceptable to know that you're going to have to do a longer implementation. But for those clients that call them, a couple hundred to a couple thousand, and if you fit in that category, they want to go typically really fast, and they want their implementation to be really inexpensive. And I think that's incredibly difficult to deliver, but you are seeing software salespeople in the HCM space selling that value proposition out in the marketplace. And I think, as what you just alluded to, I think the outcome of that, when they go really fast and they are really inexpensive, they're not delivering, and the client is disappointed and has regret.
And typically a lot of rework on the back end too, right?
Then an organization potentially like us has to come in and go back to the beginning of what the outcomes were and what they were trying to accomplish. But I'll just say, in general, I think the vast majority of clients who invest in HCM technology underestimate the level of effort it's going to take with their group to actually deploy and have a successful project. And I've been on plenty of meetings where they have enough people And even to the point where they have a project manager or PMO, I think just generally speaking, they just don't realize how much effort and how big of a footprint HCM technology has on their organization. And they want to go fast. They want to solve their pain points, and they shortcut, they make mistakes, they underestimate. And at the end of the day, they're underutilizing the capability of the technology. And some of these clients are paying a very good amount of money on a subscription. And when that gets presented to leadership on looking at the outcome, they're not looking great, and they're disappointed. They look back, it's like, what could we have done? Yeah. And I think that's part of the really fast, sort of back to the original question. I think the marker should be, you want high quality and you want to take a little longer time. Those are typically more expensive, but way more successful.
For sure. And, there's an allure of rapid implementation because, you speed up the time to value, and it's, very intriguing and, very attractive to get, your software up and running quickly, especially if you're paying a license fee for that. They're less expensive in a lot of cases. So then, what do you see the risks associated with the rapid speed of implementation to be, and where do you see your clients or clients just in general compromising in these type of speedy installs?
Absolutely. And to piggyback off of what Mike said, just if I could back up for a second to further set the stage of how we got in this type of how fast can we go mentality, really over the last 15 years with technology and software as a service and cloud platforms, what's happened is the vendor can deliver a provisioned instance in a matter of days. And that wasn't always possible. So now the expectation is we should be able to deliver the people side to keep up with the technology side. And that's where you get a lot of the major breakdowns is, you're learning a new system as a client. You've got an entire employee population who's going to be interacting with it, and condensing that process into too short of a time period really puts pressure on enablement, not only of the project team, but also of the entire employee population. It also puts a large risk of truly testing that solution to make sure it's ready for deployment. And if you have hiccups during those initial weeks of go live, your population can really start to lose faith in the choice you've made in your vendor. So extending that out a little bit and accounting for the people side of things really helps keep those risks down and a much more successful deployment for your organization.
Yeah. And, as you said, as soon as you lose your people's trust or the trust of your stakeholders and the employees who are touching that system, that getting that train back on the track is near impossible. The next question I'd love to ask is, in our reviews at Raven Intel, we ask customers about their overall satisfaction with the project, with the partner, and with the software vendor. HRMS's clients consistently have a higher degree of customer satisfaction in all three of those areas. Can you elaborate on why that is? What is HRMS doing that's attributing to those scores?
I'll go first, and I'll let Ben share his thoughts as well. But I think up front, it's all about setting the right expectations and not telling the client exactly what they want to hear. I think you need to be straight with them, and even if it's a little bit confrontational and trying to move them off of their expectations, I think when you do that up front and you can reconcile that and get off to a great start, I think the client in the end really appreciates that and being forthright, as opposed to just saying, okay, we'll accommodate, yes, sure. And then the next thing you know that the bad news is going to have to be delivered when you can't hit the mark as you're, in flight and launching the project. So I think clients appreciate the candidness up front, don't necessarily appreciate it initially because their expectations are to go maybe really fast and, to put a timeline on it, call it 3 months and we're telling them 6. I think having that conversation up front provides us the ability to be straight. And you'll see that in the reflection of the scores that clients are providing back that we're telling them honestly what it's going to take.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that tough love, but definitely we see that that having high marks and satisfaction at the end.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to what Mike shared as well, from a services team perspective, there's a lot of ways to evaluate the performance of your team members. And for HRMS, it's very important to evaluate them on client outcomes, which includes, survey feedback that we get throughout the project. And that's a stark difference to a lot of service deployment where, it's a checkbox scenario or go live at all costs. We're going to advise the client if their success criteria is going to be met on the timeline that we have. So our folks are really going to be focused on those client outcomes as opposed to how many go lives can we stack up.
Yeah. One of the things that we look at very closely in these customer reviews is the lessons learned. And we get clients that have all kinds of advice for their peers as they're starting a project. One of the pieces of advice that we've seen from HRMS's clients, a client in particular, is that we should have hired HRMS sooner. And we saw, similar comments from other customers as well. Mike, what are the benefits that you feel having a partner involved early in the processes, maybe sometimes as early as the software selection process?
I'm sorry. Obviously, it depends on what our role is in the engagement. But I would say, generally speaking, one of the lessons learned and clients appreciated was that we literally come to the table with the understanding that the client knows little to nothing about the capabilities of the product. Yes, they've gone through this comprehensive evaluation. They've looked at multiple platforms. And I think when you get to the point where you're actually in the design phase, I think a lot of times, again, back to that speed issue, clients and the vendor rush over that piece. We spend a significant amount of time upfront orienting, sharing, explaining, telling them the difference between choices that they're going to make going left and right and the impacts to those. I think the client is a lot more educated in terms of their ability to share with you what they want and what that's going to look like before anybody's laid a single brick to their new HCM home. I think we do that, and we do that really well. And I think clients really appreciate that and that level of detail. Now, it takes a little bit longer and it costs a little more money, but when you put a person in front of them that has used the product, that has been a practitioner, that can really guide you along that journey, clients will tell you, wow, a lot of value along the way, not note-taking, a coordinated meeting, but like real solid best practice, insight as opposed to how to leverage and optimize the application. So I think that would be the lesson I would share with people.
I guess related to that, once a client actually goes through and completes a project successfully, what does HRMS do after that? What other aspects of the relationship or at what point do you get back involved with a client once they've gone live?
I'll take a stab at it, and then Ben can piggyback. But a lot of times you'll see clients for two things. Once they've transitioned to the platform, sometimes they'll have turnover, and they'll ask for expertise to help provide oversight. So clients will ask us to provide supplemental support that continue the journey in terms of optimizing the application, dashboards, advanced functionality. Maybe they want to convert history or data that they didn't get to during phase one. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's around payroll processing, where they'll have a separation in their firm and come and ask us like, hey, can you help us short term while we hire somebody new and get them trained up? But then sometimes that conversation turns into a much longer engagement because they're looking for consistency and reliability. So some feedback from me, but Ben, anything to add?
Yeah, I would say, going along with the theme of the conversation, some of those clients who have gone through that rapid and cheap process, want to evolve and extract the value that they didn't get during that original condensed shorter time frame. And so they'll come to us to assess where they're at in their journey and how we can optimize. And that does play into those additional services that Mike talked about, which can be short engagements where we come in and deploy some additional modules, but also long multi-year engagements where we're helping someone along their journey for the long term.
So somebody might have used UKG for a year and want to optimize their solution or get to those aspects that they didn't have care for during an implementation, and HRMS can come and help in those situations, correct?
Absolutely.
So then we know a huge factor in this customer success and satisfaction equation is having a team that is consistent throughout the duration of a project. Also having a team that has expertise with the actual piece of software, UKG in this case. We see HRMS rating very well in both areas, above your peers, above the industry. I guess my question would be, what is it that you're looking for during the hiring process? When you're looking for a project consultant, what are the things that you're looking for? What are the attributes that you think is leading to these success rates?
Absolutely. Primarily throughout our consulting base, we are hiring practitioners, folks who have worked in those positions that our clients are in, have worked through implementations. And so they're very quickly able to relate to their clients and help guide them through the process of an implementation or ongoing services engagement through the shoes of being there, right? They've experienced those challenges. They've experienced, where they've had successes and potential pitfalls throughout those processes. So we've had great success from the practitioner perspective, obviously training them up on the details of the UKG solution so they're able to configure as well. But I'd say one of the most important things that we're very passionate about in making sure that we have tenure throughout our consulting base is during that hiring process, we're very transparent with the good and the bad of the roles that we have here at HRMS, because we want them to be in alignment. Because yes, we hope there's always more good than bad, but there are those times in any job that can be uncomfortable or lead to dissatisfaction. So being very upfront with folks on what those things are tends to lead to great tenure for HRMS as an organization.
That's great to hear. I guess the question that I would have as well in terms of how you're rating your projects, what are the markers of success that you have internally? How are you ensuring that customers are having success with the individual consulting team and with their product in general?
So throughout any engagement, we're having executive status calls to check in on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, and even in between if there's challenging times or high risk in a project. So we're very collaborative for feedback with our clients in that nature. We also have surveys as well as our Raven surveys that we take very seriously, and we do both internally debrief as a team. What are our lessons learned? What could we have done better? But we also debrief with our clients as well. We get those survey responses, but we want to talk to them about what they experienced throughout the process so that we know firsthand, because in this industry, enterprise software, the software is always changing, the process is always changing, the methodology is always changing. So if we're not eliciting feedback from all those different channels, our continuous improvement could suffer. So it's a highly engaged process of conversation in addition to surveys to make sure that we're consistently evolving to deliver the value that we've talked about today.
Love that. And I guess the last question that I would have is, what advice would you give to a customer who's about to start a UKG or really any HR software project?
Well, I give this advice often for those clients that hire us for advisory and ask us, that very same question. And I would say, beware of the commoditization of professional services. There are vendors that will commoditize, will offer you a fast and inexpensive implementation. Surely these applications every day are getting developed with greater and deeper functionality. And I would just generally say those clients that take a longer approach, spend a reasonable amount of time on the implementation, like 4 to 6 months versus 12 weeks, are gonna have a better outcome. And I instantly know when I'm talking to somebody who's been through that, because they've already felt the pain, and I don't need to educate them about that pain. They're already asking me how they can support us in a longer engagement. And it's a much easier conversation than somebody who really has not learned that yet and is interested in making a great first impression with their employee population and their leadership. And they find out the hard way that the 12-week deployment was unrealistic from out of the gate, and regret doing that.
Yeah, and I'd lead on to that with, don't underestimate the effort involved. There is a lot of heavy lifting, both from your implementation team or services team, but also your internal client team. Throughout that design process, making sure you're making best practice decisions, getting guidance throughout that, and also the testing process, making sure those first paychecks and first punches are going to go smoothly. So don't underestimate the effort that goes into that, but do know all the effort that you do put in will directly translate to value at the end of the day. I think a lot of clients are going into this thinking it's going to be quick and easy. And in full transparency, those folks are usually the ones that come back for additional services later to try and clean things up. I would also say to be clear from the start what your success criteria is. What are the issues you're trying to solve? Where are the efficiencies you're trying to gain? Where is the value for you and your organization? And throughout your engagement with any services group, do not compromise on that and work with them to make sure that those outcomes are realized, at that go live or whatever project checkpoint you might have. And the last thing I would say is know what you're buying. Do your due diligence through that vendor selection process. Know what services are included, what services may not be included, and be prepared to review that at the beginning of a services engagement too. This is our solution set. This is what we're expecting to get out of it. This is what we're expecting to implement, and make sure there's alignment very early on those.
Love it. So what I heard was know exactly what you're buying, know what your success metrics and outcome will be. Don't underestimate the effort involved in an implementation, and you can't commoditize an implementation. Anything that is worth doing and truly transformational is not going to be quick or easy. And wise words from two professionals that absolutely have done this before and have seen the good and bad of implementation. So I thank you, Mike and Ben, for really some of the wisdom that you have shared today. And if you are watching and want to know more about HRMS solutions, you will find them linked here in their profile. You can read the many reviews that they have from customers and see specifically the metrics that they have around implementation, which clearly lead their peers in the UKG space as well as the HCM industry. So thank you again. And I look forward to seeing you at the UKG Partner Forum in a couple of weeks.